Yeah, because there are words that are are pronounced completely different to how you think they would be pronounced.
Yeah, but if it's
Like hyperbole. Like I used to always think it was
yeah,
hyperbole.
I used to always say, what was the one I always used to say? Albeit. Albeit,
Oh, right.
because the way it's spelled, it's Albeit, and I always was like, what the hell is that word albeit? And it looked German in origin to me, like albeit.
Okay.
And yeah.
Well, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong, a podcast with two exes who still associate with each other, talk about pop culture, politics, online shenanigans, and all sorts of things. My name is Sean, and that's Josh. How are you, Josh?
Hi, Sean. I'm okay, thank you. I was just complaining before we started we're both complaining about how exhausted we are. So we'll try and pep ourselves up a little bit for this.
There's always...
I've got a glass of Malbec, only because it's Lady Gaga's birthday today. That's the only reason I'm having a glass of wine.
So I'm going to try all through this episode, every time you take a sip, I'm going to try and remember to say, another drink, Sue?
Another drink, Sue, yes. And if you don't know what... In fact, I was thinking about this just last week when I was editing episode 87, I think it was, that there might be some listeners and viewers who hear us call each other Sue all the time and maybe don't know why we do that. So that I'll put a link in the show notes to an earlier episode where we explain why we call each other Sue, because obviously our names are not Sue. I'm Josh, that's Sean. But there's a reason why we're both Sue.
And yeah, it's a long story. And that episode, I think when we were doing that, I think we were cracking up so much. Wasn't that an episode where we were just laughing so much?
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about some of the Sue scenarios, it's brilliant.
It was a tsunami of Sue experiences. Anyway, what I am not laughing about this week was watching a documentary on Netflix by Louis Theroux called Inside the Manosphere. Did you watch it?
I did. I just finished it last night, and oh my God, it's so distressing.
Horrifying. Do you want to give us a quick recap about what it was about?
Well, Louis Theroux, if you don't know much about him, he's a very well-known, respected documentary maker, among other things, in the UK, and he has done a lot of very hard-hitting sort of subculture exposés over the years, and that can be anything.
What are some of the things that he's done?
Well, one that we've talked about on the podcast before is the settlers, when he goes and looks at the Israeli settlements trying to take over Palestinian land. And another really famous one of his was when he went to sort of very high security American prisons and spoke to the inmates on death row and stuff like that, or who had
Didn't he do one where he went and spoke to people who were pedophiles?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
One of his?
I've got sort of vague memory of that. I think, probably that sounds like the sort of thing he would do. He's very well respected. He does kind of annoy me a bit sometimes. I think he does insert himself into the narrative more than is perhaps necessary. But I mean, everyone has something that annoys you.
Okay, and so this latest documentary that's getting a lot of traction online, what's it about?
So it's about the Manosphere. So the Manosphere is the term, it's a relatively new term, I suppose, given to the proliferation of male content creators, men who create content across all social media platforms. And it's a manifestation, I suppose, of toxic masculinity. So it's incredibly misogynistic, mostly homophobic, very problematic, I was going to say very right wing. I don't know if it's maybe talking about left wing, right wing maybe doesn't really
Well,
work
it
in this
kind of like
scenario.
if you did have to label it with a type of a division of politics, it's maybe a bit more libertarian.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of very far right tropes are common in the manosphere. But yeah, you're right. It is much more of a sort of libertarian sort of ideology that a lot of them have.
And it's taking that idea of neoliberalism about, every person for themselves
Yeah.
and supersizing it. So it's these like influencers who are moving to Dubai so they don't have to pay tax, who can live a supposed life of luxury. But I mean,
Mm,
how's that going for everyone right now?
yeah.
And it's all focused around men's rights and championing the rights of men and the success of men and making men reclaim what's rightfully theirs in the face of what they think is their rights being stripped away from them.
I mean, the way I see it, and you can tell me where I'm going wrong if you like, but the way I see it is that in any modern iteration of society, of humanity, of course, um, there is progress, and that means that feminism has become a stronger voice, and that women are starting to get a more fair share of things. I mean, they're still a long way off that, but they are starting to get more rights and more standing in society. And I think this is a pushback. It's a resistance to that is partly what informs it, but it is also, it ties in very closely with capitalism and owning capitalism, if you want to sort of talk in manosphere terms, but sort of being the most financially successful,
Uh-huh.
masculine, women controlling man that you can be. I mean, that's essentially it, as far as I can see, anyway.
But also, it's what struck me about watching the Louis Theroux documentary Inside the Manosphere was how infantile a lot of these men appear. They don't appear to be, if you want to buy into the tropes of masculinity, they don't appear to be very masculine men to me in the traditional or stereotypical sense of the word, right?
No. These men are not well. I mean, they are
No.
really, not well people. And I sort of say that with compassion in some ways, but it's hard to have compassion for people that spread so much awful ill will and ill feeling against people to the world. And
And well, what?
I find it disingenuous as well because I
Oh
think
yeah,
I
yeah.
suspect most of them probably don't even feel the things that they say. They do it purely because they know it will get a reaction, and I just find it so distasteful. But
Yeah, it's a massive grift.
yeah,
The It appeals to it's marketed towards vulnerable young people, especially young teenage boys and men who are chronically online and who consume this content through unregulated means. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, where the world of AI and being online is so unregulated and
mm,
unfiltered and uncontrolled that it is a dangerous landscape. And so you've got young people who are consuming hours and hours and hours and hours of this content every day. And they're hearing the same messages being said to them that they're being having their rights taken from them. They need to step up and be more, like tell women what they should do. They should, really horrifying, toxic language. And the men saying it don't really mean it. They're just doing it to make money. And these children are being radicalized into this way of thinking. And it's all a grift. It's all
mhm,
fake. It's like another branch of MAGA politics, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
You
It's
know?
it's it's cult like, and I mean, I don't want to sort of let anyone off the hook, but when I say these men are not well, like I actually I'm serious. They're not clearly not well. Like that last influencer, I can't remember his name, but the one who lives in New York. Um, the way that he was talking about how he believes that there is a satanic cult and the devil is actively trying to take back the world or take over society, and the example he gave was Sam Smith. I mean, of all people, like Sam Smith and
Well,
the,
there's some weird stuff coming out about that young guy this week where he
do you
was
remember his
involved in.
name?
No, I can't remember it, but it was something when he was younger. He was involved in something sexually with another man. And, there's often a lot of very confused feelings of sexuality and identity and gender in for these men. And it's
Mm.
weaponized against them because they're vulnerable. And they're looking for confirmation of identity. That's what's weaponized against them and used to coerce them into becoming disciples of people
And
like Andrew Tate.
yeah, and again, like I was saying before, I do see it as with any advancement of society. You saw this with, the civil rights movement. You're seeing it now with the trans rights movement. With any advancement that any section or subculture of society gains, there's always pushback. And I think, I mean, I've used this quote on the podcast before, but I'll use it again. But Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And I think I always try and remind myself of that when I see such ugliness in the world. That yes,
Yeah.
it's hideous what the Louis Theroux documentary exposed, but I suppose it's because there has been some advancement for women in society in the last few decades, particularly, and this is just unfortunately the ugly pushback from that.
Just as a comical aside, there's a bit in the documentary where Louis Theroux is talking to someone who makes viral content by setting up and targeting pedophiles or people who are trying to meet up with underage people, children.
Mm-hmm.
And he is talking to him on the street, and one of this guy's young followers sees them and recognizes the influencer and yells out to him, "Hey, are you busting another pedo?" And this guy goes, "No, mate, this isn't a pedo. This is Louis Theroux.
Oh
He's
yeah,
not
I
a
know.
pedo." It was
Yeah,
quite a funny line
I
in what
mean,
was a really grim scenario.
I, yeah, I was going to
And what
say something about the men featured in this documentary, but I don't know. It's I don't like to use the term stupid because I think that's a very loaded term. I think
Yeah.
stupid is I think intelligence is not something innate. I think it's something that can be learned or something you can absorb. But they oversimplify the world so much and they come across as very, very unthinking people, which is, I
Or
suppose,
or they go the other way and they're just very, very duplicitous and they understand it completely and they're using it to make money.
right, okay, and they're just completely
Yeah.
manipulative.
I
Yeah,
think there was
yeah,
a mix of
possibly.
people. I think there was a mix of people. But what about this term looksmaxxing? Have you heard about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So just for the sake of um, people who are not aware, looksmaxxing is a trend where men and teens obsessively try to maximize their physical appearance, often through intense grooming, known as soft maxing, or extreme measures, hard maxing, like plastic surgery, bone smashing, and steroids to achieve a more masculine, chiseled look. It's very popular on social media.
But
But
the fact
there's
that these have terms, I mean, these are things that people have been doing for centuries or millennia, and
Mhm.
the fact that they need to have more masculine sounding terms for these, it's
But
just
it's
so
also
fucked.
yeah, it's being packaged to people. It's being packaged to young men that they can be part of this scene and they can be recognized as being successful at
Hmm.
looks maxing. They can
Hmm.
be recognized as the alphas in this movement. And there's this particular guy called Braden Eric Peters who online name is Clavicula.
Which one
Have
was
you heard
he? Was
about
he in the
him?
documentary?
No, he wasn't,
Oh,
but he's very famous. He's one of the biggest. He's only 20 years old, and he's like smashing his face with a hammer to try and give his jaw a square shape. He's doing all this stuff, but he's just been arrested on battery charges for inciting these two women to physically fight, and he filming it for content so he could stream it and make
but
money.
what
And
platform
then,
was that on?
oh, who knows? Probably Twitch or something. You know, like these streaming platforms, whether you
These
just stream live.
these platforms need to be
Oh,
held to
that it's the
account.
wild, yeah, it's the Wild West. But anyway, I also saw a video 2 days ago of this guy, Clavicula, just before he was arrested. There was video where he was live streaming. He was in the Florida Everglades on a boat, and he was firing a gun into the water, shooting an alligator at like 2 meters away. Just this poor alligator that was in the wild. So now the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission are investigating whether to charge him with animal cruelty because he and some other people were just shooting this poor alligator. But in the meantime, while that's going on, he's also been arrested. So these are the sorts of people that are coming out of these movements, like Andrew Tate as well, like being
Well, yeah,
investigated for,
still facing charges of sex trafficking.
yeah, and sexual assault, and yeah,
Hmm.
it's horrible. So I find it very distressing, and it doesn't feel like it's going away. It doesn't feel like
No, I
how do we
mean,
challenge it?
well, I mean, was it last week we were talking about just the proliferation of online content and how damaging it is to society? I mean, this is just another iteration of that, isn't it? I mean, it's just it it makes you think that maybe online content should be shut down, and the irony of me saying that on a podcast is not lost on me. But um, you do wonder,
Well, if
don't
we
you? Like,
yeah, yeah, like there doesn't feel like a positive way out. But to look at something positive, to look at some positive men online, I'm a big fan of a podcast series called The Basement Yard. And have you heard of this guy called Joe Santagato?
never.
Have you heard of him?
No.
He's about 30 or 32 years old now, and he started as a young man online, working with other online creators and platforms, and then he started his own YouTube channel. And it is so the what how do you say the opposite, the antithesis?
Antithesis.
It's such the antithesis of these looksmaxxing incels, you know. Well,
Bros.
shout out to the incel community, but you know, it's such an antithesis of that. Joe on his channel, it's all very wholesome content. He's a little bit not problematic. He's just an average bloke, so he sometimes says things that are might not be what you or I would say, but it's very just down to earth. The people on his channel are his childhood friends. The main guy that hosts with him is Frank Alvarez, and they've been friends since they were children. They're from New York, and they do just really wholesome content like word association games and word scrambles, or can you guess, like the celebrity heads
Hmm.
thing where you put a celebrity's name on your head and you've got to ask questions. And they have become so popular. He's got about 2 or 3 YouTube channels now, and combined, he has over 4 million followers.
Wow.
And him and
But
his
isn't it
friend
wild?
Frank.
Isn't it wild though that someone can be that big or that popular, and yet I've never heard of them. I mean, obviously, I'm chronically not in touch with what's going on in
Yeah,
society, but even so, like, it just goes to show, doesn't it? Like the proliferation of stuff online now
yeah,
means that somebody could, you know, be so much like get mobbed at airports and stuff, and I would have no idea who
yeah.
they were.
Well, these guys, like Joe and Frank, they've been on a tour, like a basement yard tour, where they started by doing like 1,000-seat theaters, where they would get on stage and reenact some of the stuff that they do online and take questions from the audience. They just sold out and just did a sold out show at Madison Square Garden. of
Wow.
this podcast, of them, just two childhood friends just talking nonsense on stage. 20,000 people. I think it sold out in 10 minutes. And they're so hugely popular. And it's like this alternative to this Manosphere. Like, they are just everyday guys. They have like nerdy friends that they have on and talk about like word games, or it's kind of like, you know how unreal that toxic manosphere is and how unrealistic it is at the same time. It creates a false narrative about what men could be. These
Yeah.
guys are just goofy, you know, goofballs like Joe and Frank and their friends like Keith and Ant. They're just down to earth. They make jokes. They like make fun of each other. They're quite a diverse group of people as well. Like, one of their friends is a little bit overweight. One of them is Muslim. One of them is, you know, and it's just very real world. And it is how toxic online culture is. It's quite a depressing place to spend time, isn't it? Watching
Oh, yeah.
videos and being online.
Yeah.
These guys are like a breath of fresh air. It feels nurturing to watch them. It just feels good to see people being nice to each other, being good-willed, and having fun.
And that the other thing I thought after the Louis Theroux documentary was that, of course, something like that has to make for good TV in order to have an impact. But they were taking very extreme examples there in that documentary. I bet, I don't want to do any research, but I bet that there are hundreds,
Yeah.
if not more, other sort of male influencers who aren't as extreme, but they still
Yeah.
perpetuate very problematic tropes and narratives, very misogynistic stuff. But
Yeah.
I it's heartening to hear that there are other influencers out there who are doing much more sort of less hateful things. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that, I suppose the problem with the documentary is that it's not it's very tabloidy, isn't it? It's just highlighting these extreme examples, but is it
Yeah.
really getting to grips with or trying to peel back the surface on what this means for just regular boys and young men? And
Well, I think what's good about the Louis Theroux stuff is it starts a dialogue. Like, for
mm,
instance, we're chatting about it, and I think he can't do everything. Like, he can kickstart a conversation, or he might come into a conversation like halfway through it, but it's a way to get people to discuss it, and then it might inspire other people to run with it and to look at ways of like supporting young men or intervening or having a sort of like a resistance to it. I think he's
mm.
good at raising awareness of things, you know, and getting
because
people to think and engage with topics.
because I am a believer that masculinity needs to be talked about, because there need to be healthy role models for
Yeah,
young people, and they need to see positive representations of both femininity and masculinity and everything in between. I don't think that by ignoring uh, the role of boys and men in society that we can have a healthy future. We do need to talk about it in constructive, helpful, and accessible ways. And um,
yeah,
I think that in some ways, like a lot of women's studies university courses now talk a lot about masculinity, because you can't sort of go so far into one without thinking about the effects it can have on the other, I think. But
yeah.
it's
But it's nice to me. I get some comfort in knowing that young men are watching things like The Basement Yard and seeing
yeah.
positive depictions of mainstream masculinity.
Hmm.
And, you know, they have a very big gay following. I mean, hey, I'm there because they're very attractive men. They are they just have a bit of a they have a bit of a cult following with the gay community, especially the bear community. And
Okay.
they are
Shout out to the
very
bear community.
yeah, shout out to the bears. Frank and Joe, they are very accepting and embracing of it, and they talk about it a lot. And, they make jokes about it as well. Just because everything they do is very much a real conversation where they're joking with each other. But in the vein of the Basement Yard and Santagato Studios, let's play a little one of the games are the most basic games. The sort of games we would play when we would go on road trips, and you would say, "I'm going to say a word," and you've got to think of a song with that word in it.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did I say?
Yeah. No, we said the same thing at the same time. A song.
Oh, okay. So it's that level of word games, or they'll have like a word jumbled up on the screen, and they've got to try and guess it. But there's something so engaging and wholesome about it, watching them do it, and it's all the joking and the camaraderie in between. So in the vein of celebrating more positive.
Oh my God, you didn't warn me about this.
It's just going to be really simple.
Okay.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Starting at, do you want more than 30 seconds?
Well, I don't know what the game is yet.
I'll give you a minute for the first one. Okay, I'm just setting the thing. 59 seconds because I can do a minute. Hang on. Starting at the letter A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've got to say an animal starting with A, and then an animal starting with B. So you've got to stay in the category of animals, and you've got to see how many you can get through in a minute. Okay. I'm going to count you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, aardvark, boar. I can't think of a C. Can I skip a letter?
Go.
Oh my God, I can't think of a C. I'm useless on the spot. You know this.
Crocodile.
Crocodile. Thank you. D. Oh God, this is not the game for me. Not the game for me.
D. Dingo.
Okay,
Dingo.
good. Well, you do it then.
I'm going to help you out.
Okay.
I'm going to help you. Go now.
Why don't we do it competitively? So, like, who can think of the next one? Elephant. Fox.
Flamingo. Okay.
No.
Giraffe.
No, yeah.
Hippopotamus.
Ibex. Ibis.
What's Ibex?
Or either one. Joey. Can it be a baby kangaroo, Joey?
Okay, time's up.
Oh God.
No, it has to be an animal. Okay, why don't you do another one? But why don't you pick one, and then we'll do it one and one. But pick another category. So we'll start again.
Capital cities.
And capital cities of countries or states, or it could be both.
Countries.
You know what I mean?
Are you doing the timer, or shall I do a timer?
Yeah, I'm doing the timer. Okay. So do you want to start?
Okay. Have you got?
Because I can't think of one with A.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Amsterdam.
Brasilia.
Shit. Canberra.
Okay. DC.
No. Can I jump in if I've got one?
Yes.
Doha.
Yeah.
Doha.
Okay.
And now what? Is it your turn now?
Yeah, I can't think of one.
E. Oh, I don't know. E. There must be one.
Oh, it's so hard.
Well, let's skip.
See,
let's
I would
skip
be total...
E. F. Oh, F. Oh, hang on. I know one. Funafuti. Funafuti.
People watching this are screaming like that we're idiots. Like, I can't
What
think
did
of
we
one.
skip? E. There must be a really obvious E one.
Okay, time's up. We did even worse at that.
Oh my God.
We did worse at that than... Let's do one more and then we'll move on.
Can you just Google capital cities beginning with E? Because maybe there isn't one. Maybe that's why we were stumped.
Oh, okay.
All right, you pick a category.
Let's look at that after. Okay. It's going to be the first names of pop singers. Okay.
Oh my God, Sean, this is
So
terrible.
it can be, they can,
Apologies in advance.
this is something that you should do well at. Okay. It can be any
No.
genre.
Can it be
They
plant
can be,
related? Can it be plant related?
no. Well, I would be out straight away. Okay. I'll
Oh,
I'll start. Okay. Astrid.
who's that?
It's a singer.
No.
You go B.
Belinda Carlisle.
Uh-huh. C. Charo.
Oh, okay. Uh,
This is so hard.
No idea. Who starts with D? Delilah.
Denny Hines.
Denise Pearson from 5 Star.
Okay.
Or Doris Pearson from
E.
5 Star, for that matter.
E. Alyssa Fiorello.
Okay.
We're just saying the most random people. F.
I don't know. I can't think of it. All I could think of is Fenella. All I could think of is Fenella from Dairy Girls.
Okay, we're out. I can't even stop this.
This is terrible.
Okay, that's the end of the game. Anyway, I highly recommend, if you are looking for brain rot that's a bit more wholesome and it feels like you're hanging out with friends, it feels nurturing. Go and watch some of these videos with Joe on his channels, Santagato Studios and The Basement Yard. I find them very comforting.
And if anybody would like to pay money and come and see me and Sean do this live on stage at Madison Square Garden, me drinking vegan wine and playing word association games, then please let us know. I'd gladly do that. Another drink, Sue, exactly.
See, if we ever got to that level of fame, would we be allowed to sell merchandise that said another drink, Sue, or would we get sued by
we would have to get
Mike Lee?
We'd have to get a permission, wouldn't we?
Talking about success and money and people having a lot more money than they should. Not to say that any of these people like Joe and Frank, but maybe Andrew Tate and those people, maybe they do. But I read an article online in the Londoner this week on the website. The title of the article was "The Billionaires Who Really Own London," and it was so startling. They had a map, an interactive map of Oxford Street, which for people who don't know is like this main sort of commercial street in the West End of London. And they had little pins all along, and you could zoom in, and it tells you who owned the property and where the registered business address of that person was or that corporation was. And there were hundreds of properties along Oxford Street owned by either billionaires or conglomerates or, business groups that were worth billions. And they were all had registered offices in tax havens like Jersey or Saint-Tropez. So these were properties that are worth hundreds of millions of pounds in total, that are raking in lots and lots of money, that are sort of destroying the culture of the West End as well. Vape shops and just candy shops, nonsense. And these people are not paying tax on it, and they're worth billions. And I just wanted to talk to you about being in London, and you grew up in London. How have you seen it change over your lifetime about this sort of infiltration of money, especially like money from other countries, how it's changed the culture of the city?
Well, I think it's not something that's unique to London, but it does feel very much like the heart and soul of the city has been stripped away. And I think it's the same in New York and same in many other cities around the world. But the ability for subcultures and artistic communities to flourish is being gradually taken away because of capitalist capitalist forces, and part of that certainly is foreign property ownership. So investing in property in London simply as an investment, not wanting to actually cultivate any sort of quality of life for the city or its residents, but just purely investing in the property market.
Yeah.
That has definitely put a lot of businesses under increased duress and has resulted in a lot of them having to close. I mean, we've
Yeah.
talked a lot about vegan businesses on this podcast in the past, but it's the same across the board. There are so many businesses and artistic hubs and community hubs that have closed because of um, these capitalist forces. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to necessarily single out foreign ownership. I mean, that is part of the problem, certainly.
Well,
But
yeah. Why this article in particular talks about foreign ownership is that it was saying that a lot of the money is coming from countries that the UK maybe shouldn't be allowing to, because it's kind of like money laundering for places like the UAE, right? So people that are using money for oppressive, exploitative purposes are putting money into the London property market to launder it or to get around like the tax loopholes and everything. Or Bitcoin cryptocurrency companies are buying into the London property market, and so it's just so it why the important part of saying why it's like foreign or like non-UK is because that's part of the problem, because these people aren't paying tax and
yeah,
not
but
contributing to the wellness of the community here.
but it does link into something that we've spoken about on here before, is that, and that is that there needs to be, on a national and international level, there needs to be legislation that stops people from doing things that make them billionaires, that allow them to not pay taxes. I mean, it's criminal. Well, it's not criminal. It should be criminal for
Yeah,
people to get away with not paying tax when everyone who's not, filthy rich has to fucking pay tax. We have to pay tax. And
yeah.
there are
Well, I
billionaires
made a
getting away
note.
with.
Yeah. Well, I made a note about Hill and I pay more tax than all of these people I'm referring to who own properties, on Oxford Street. We pay more tax collectively than they
Mhm.
do. And we
Yeah.
are like working class people. And these people earn more money in an hour than Hill and I collectively earn in, say, a year, right? Maybe more. They maybe earn more than that in an
They
hour.
may earn more
How
than
is
you'll earn in your
this?
lifetime. I mean, it's obscene. It's truly obscene. Um,
Yeah.
and
But
in a
what is
way
the
that links back to the whole manosphere thing that we were talking about before. Like the way that people are exploited financially is that there needs to be stronger legislation around this and need to be laws around this to protect people, because there are so many predatory people in the world who will just gladly take people's money until they are completely broke. It's just disgusting.
and I find that there's more legislation, or I suppose comeuppance to be served to people like you and me and Hill and working class people. If we miss a tax payment, or if we miss, like, we don't pay the TV license, there's more, disproportionately more will happen to us as punishment than to
Hmm.
people who get away with stealing or defrauding hundreds of millions or billions of pounds. Like,
Hmm.
we get in more trouble comparatively for being poor than somebody would for stealing money or defrauding or like grifting. I mean, it's just so unfair. What what do you think could ever change this system and the way it's headed. What could we do collectively as a society to try and change the course, this doomsday course that we're on?
Well, we need to elect. Well, I think a lot of things need to happen, and one of those is that I think we need to s- somehow transition away from this uh, very narrow interpretation of what a democracy is. And instead of having one elected leader, we need to have a panel of 3 or 5 elected leaders at any one time. And some countries do have something approaching that, but I think ultimately there is always one person at the top. And I think we need to move away from that and allow more people to feel represented in government. And that in turn will hopefully lead to better legislation um, to not only protect people who have less money or less privilege, less wealth, but also just it will uh, I think it will just allow more people to feel valued in society. And I know that's very
Yeah.
idealistic, but I think without that happening, I just don't see if we just keep electing the same old parties and having one leader, I just feel that we're doomed to just repeat the same mistakes over and over and over.
And we need to renationalize public services, things like trains,
Oh, yeah,
energy infrastructure.
yeah. I
We
mean,
need to
it's
have like,
ridiculous. It's
uh
ridiculous that I mean the whole we haven't really spoken much about it on the podcast, but the whole situation in Iran, um, the fact that the world is still so dependent on oil when renewable energy sources have been around for decades and decades, and that governments haven't embraced that is testament
mhm,
to the fact that democracy is broken. Like, governments have not been
yeah.
acting in the best interest of the citizens of all these nations. Like, by continuing our dependence on oil, we now are in this ridiculous situation, tragic situation. So, yeah, it's so avoidable.
But it almost feels like part of the design of the control mechanism, that if we keep people dependent on these resources, there are excuses to pit people against each other. People can hoard wealth. People have reasons to go to war. It's
Hmm.
kind of like, oh, if we get
Well,
away with that, yeah,
yeah.
people won't be able to hoard wealth and excel at
Well,
isolating
and
people
it
and
keeps
controlling
us
people.
as good little worker bees in the capitalist structure, doesn't it? Because if you invested enough money in renewable energy, we'd never have to pay another energy bill again. I mean, all right, maybe we would have to pay some maintenance fees, but if enough money was invested up front, it would free up so much of us from
Yeah,
paying these bills. But of course, that's not what really what the capitalist system wants from us anyway. So yeah,
yeah.
it's revolution is what we need.
Anyway, Anyway, we're all doomed. So thanks for joining us for another episode, another drink, Sue, before we go.
Yep.
And if you feel like the world's about to end, maybe just watch something mindless online, like word games with the basement yard. Don't watch any incels or manosphere content. And anything else you want to say before we go, Josh?
I do want to say, of course, that we would love it if you subscribe. So smash that subscribe button. Wherever you're listening or watching, do subscribe, leave us a comment, and share this episode with your friends. And I will put a link in the show notes to the Sue episode where we discuss Abigail's party and why we call each other Sue. But apart from that, if you want to find out what I'm up to, you can find me online at Josh and the Jumpstarts. And yeah, that's everything I have to
And
say.
yeah, And you can find me and all information about my events, including London Vegan Beer Fest, at fatgayvegan.com. And I'm going to go off now and do a little bit of soft maxing. I'm going to go and put some moisturizer on my face because I'm looking a bit peakish. So soft maxing. Are you going to go and do some hard maxing?
I'm going to go and take a hammer and smash my jaw to make it more masculine. So I'll see you next week with a new jawline. Okay, folks, take care of yourselves.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.